He called his sons together and admonished them in these words to lead a life of piety. He says, I am Zebulun, a precious gift for my parents, for when I was born, my father became rich, very rich, by means of the streaked rods and herds of sheep and herds of cattle. I am conscious of no sin in me, and I remember no wrong done by me, unless it be the unwitting sin committed against his brother Joseph. And that I did not, out of consideration of my brethren, disclose to my father what had happened to his favorite son. In secret I mourned exceedingly. I feared my brethren, because they had agreed that he who betrayed the secret should be slain with the sword. When they planned to kill Joseph, I besought them amid tears not to sin thus. And now, my children, hearken unto me. I exhort you to observe the commands of the Lord, and have mercy upon your neighbors and act compassionately, not only toward men, but also toward dumb brutes. Also towards dumb people. Have compassion for them too. For on account of my mercifulness, the Lord blessed me. All my brethren fell sick at one time or another. I escaped without any illness. And the sons of my brethren had to endure disease. And they were nigh unto death for the sake of Joseph, because they had no pity in their hearts. But my sons were preserved in perfect health, as ye well know. And when I was in Canaan, Canaan, the land of Phoenicia, right? Or Sidonians, Sidon, Phoenicia, catching fish at the shores of the sea for my father Jacob. Many were drowned in the waters of the sea, but I came away unharmed. For ye must know that I was the first to build the boat for rowing upon the sea, and I plied along the coast in it, and caught fish for my father's household, until we went down into Egypt. Out of pity, I would share my haul with the poor stranger. And if he was sick or well on in years, I would prepare a savory dish for him. And I gave unto each according to his needs, sympathizing with him in his distress and having pity upon him. Therefore the Lord brought numerous fish to my nets. For he that gives aught to his neighbor receives it back from the Lord with great increase. For 5 years I fished in the summer, and in the winter I pastured the flocks with my brethren. Now, my children, have pity and compassion on all men, that the Lord may have pity and compassion on you. For in the measure in which man has mercy with his fellow men, God has mercy with him. When we came down into Egypt, Joseph did not visit upon us the wrong he had suffered. Take him as your model, and remember not a wrong done unto you, else unity is rent asunder, and the bonds of the kinship are torn, and the soul is disquieted. Observe the water. If it runs on undivided, it carries down stone, wood, and sand along with it. But if it is divided and flows through many channels, the earth sucked it up, and it loses its force. If you separate one from the other, you will be like divided waters. Be not cleft into two heads. For all that the Lord hath made has but one head. He has given 2 shoulders unto his creatures, 2 hands, and 2 feet. But all these organs obey one head. Okay. Zebulun ended his extortion unto unity with an account of the divisions in Israel. Wherefore he had read in the writings of the fathers that they would come about in future days, in the future, and bring sore suffering upon Israel. However, he spoke encouraging words to his children, saying, Be not grieved over my death, and do not lose heart at my departure from you, for I shall arise again in the midst of you, and I shall live joyously among the people of my tribe. Those who observe the law of the Lord, as for the godless, the Lord will bring everlasting fire down upon them and exterminate them unto all generations. Now I hasten hence unto my eternal rest with my fathers, but fear ye the Lord your God with all your might all the days of your life. Having made an end of these sayings, he sank into deep sleep of death, and his sons put him into a coffin, wherein they carried him up to Hebron later, to bury him there next to his fathers. So that was one. Gad was another. See, Zebulon had enmity for Joseph. All right, that was one. We're going to read the other who had enmity was Dan. The tribe of Dan had enmity for their brother Joseph as well. Okay, now go back to Genesis and read what it says about Dan. Okay, the tribe of Dan. All right, this is Genesis 49:17. He says, Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the pathway that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, O Lord. That's what Dan, now Dan's confession was this. In the sons of Jacob, he says, when Dan assembled his family at the last of his life, he spake, I confess before you this day, my children, that I had resolved to kill Joseph. He wanted to kill his brother Joseph, the good and upright man, and I rejoiced over his cell. For his father loved him more than he loved the rest of us. The spirit of envy and boastfulness goaded me on, saying, Thou too art the son of Jacob. And one of the spirits of Behar stirred me up, saying, Take this sword and slay Joseph. For once he is dead, thy father will love thee. It was the spirit of anger that was seeking to persuade me to crush Joseph, as a leopard crunches a kid before his teeth. But the God of our father Jacob did not deliver him into my hand, to let me find him alone, and he did not permit me to execute this impious deed, that the two tribes in Israel might not be destroyed. And now, my children, I am about to die, and I tell it about unto you in truth, if you take not heed against the spirit of lies and anger. If ye love not truth and generosity, you will perish. The spirit of anger casts a net of error around its victim, and it blinds his eyes, and the spirit of lies warps his mind and clouds his vision. Evil is anger. It is the grave of the soul. Desist from the anger and hate lies, that the Lord may dwell among you. And Behar, flee from you, or Beliar, flee from your presence. Speak the truth, each unto his neighbor. And you will not fall into the anger and trouble, but you will be at peace. And the Lord of peace you will have with you, and no war will vanquish you. I speak thus, for I know that in the latter days you will fall off from God, and you will kindle the wrath of Levi, and rise in rebellion against Judah. But you will not accomplish aught against them, for the angel of the Lord is their guide, and Israel will perish through them. And if you turn recreant to the Lord, you will execute every kind of evil thing and do the abominations of the heathen. committing unchastity with the wives of the godless, while the tempter spirits are at work among you. Therefore, you will be carried away into captivity. And in the lands of exile, you will suffer all the plagues of Egypt and all the tribulations of the heathen. But when you return to the Lord, you will find mercy. He will take you into his sanctuary and grant you peace. And now, my children, fear the Lord and be on your guard against Satan and his spirits. Keep aloof from every evil deed. Cast away anger from you and every sort of lie. Love truth and forbearance. And what you have heard from your father, tell unto your children. Avoid all manner of unrighteousness. Cling to the integrity of the law of the Lord, and bury me near my fathers. Having spoke these words, he kissed his children and fell asleep. So Dan clearly said he wanted to kill Joseph because his blessing was greater. Joseph was loved by his father more than the rest of his brothers, okay? Now here is Naphtali's dream. Now, Naphtali's dream is the one I had been looking for. I think it's this one. Naphtali, another son. Now, read what it says about Naphtali in the Bible. This is about the 12 princes of Egypt. We read Herodotus, and we saw the end result, what had happened right before the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. All of these things happened. What the confessions are saying. In the latter days, y'all were going to become captives. Become in captivity because y'all had went away from God. Satan got a hold of them. And the tribe of Dan was one of those tribes that became the mythical lost tribes of Israel. Okay, and that was their reason. They had enmity for their brother. They was trying to take his blessing. So, all right. This is what it says about Naphtali. In Genesis 14:9, Genesis 49:21. Naphtali is a doe or a deer. He's like a buck or a deer, a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. All right, swift at the feet. You know, is Naphtali. Okay, here we go. Naphtali's dream. Naphtali had a dream of the division of the tribes of Israel. Now, previously, one of the brothers just said, Zebulun said, don't have two heads, have one head. It's like you got two shoulders, two arms, two hands. But all of these faculties are controlled by one head. You need one Godhead. That's why man is the Godhead, okay, over the family. You don't need two people trying to control the family and be in the top control because they're going to be at conflict with one another. You got to obey one head. You know, that's what he was saying. That's what happened to the tribes of Israel. They were divided into two bodies. They were trying to have two heads govern them, and they could not get along. They could not see eye to eye with one another. And they had enmity for one another because one may have had a blessing better than the other. So, which was the case. And that's what happened to us. From the tribe of Israel, we went to war with one another, okay? And we destroyed one another. Black on black crime is a problem with my people to this very day. Black on black crime. Niggas kill other niggas. That's what's the current problem with my people to this bloody day right now. So, all right. In the book of Naphtali, the testimony of Naphtali was this. Listen to it. Naphtali dreams of the division of the tribes. In the 132nd year of his life, Naphtali invited all his children to a banquet. The next morning when he awoke, he told them that he was dying, but they would not believe him. He, however, praised the Lord and assured them again that his death was due after the banquet of the day before. Then he addressed his last words to his children. He said, I was born of Bilhah, and because Rachel had acted with cunning and had given Jacob Bilhah instead of herself, I was called Naphtali. Rachel loved me